Hey, it's your boy JC. Welcome to Dream 10X episode 47.
Wow, 47?
What's your name? You gotta introduce yourself.
I don't know. I am Dr. Capel.
And we're here with episode 47 of Dream 10X, and today we are talking about the book Am I Being Too Subtle by Sam Zell. Recently read this book. I found out about Sam Zell listening to Tim Ferriss' podcast. He had him on his podcast and he interviewed him, and I thought it was really interesting, so I wanted to find out more about who Sam Zell was, so I read his book. And just wanted to tell you a little bit about the top 10 things that I learned about Sam Zell from reading this book. But before we get into that, we are standing in our new studio. It's not really a studio. We're just outside with our boat. This is a gunning dory that we bought from the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum, CBMM. You can find them cbmm.org. And really cool place. They've got all kinds of different boats. But this boat was built, I think, in 1978, and it's an old gunning dory.
It's 4 years younger than me.
We're not going to talk about how much younger it is than me. But it's in a state of repair right now that needs to be, or disrepair, it needs to be fixed up. But the reason we're going to work on this boat is because we want to do a race to Alaska next year. And that race is basically a human-powered or a no-power, no motors. No motors.
So you can sail, stand-up paddle, row.
Right, and we plan on rowing and sailing in that event. Hopefully, I mean, if everything goes well. We have so much going on, but one of the things we want to do is fix this boat up and get it ready for the race next year, which will be next June. So it's about ready to kick off this year. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we weren't anywhere prepared for it this year, but hopefully we're going to get our mindset and our gear and everything ready to go next year.
You have a perfect birthday present for me.
And, yeah, happy birthday. And we're planning on going with our friend Jason Bungert. And so this boat can be sailed and it can be rowed. And so Cindy and I are planning on being the rowers, and hopefully Jason will be the expert what do you call him? Expert sailor?
Mm-hmm. Sailor.
Yeah. So we have a lot of work to get it ready for that. But basically the race is from Port Townsend, Washington, 750 miles up the British Columbia Canadian coast up to Ketchikan, Alaska. And you can go the inside passage if you want to be kind of safe, or you can go on the outside if you want, and risk it on the wild Pacific Ocean.
What are we doing?
We're going to go on the inside and play it as safe as possible. It's a long way. 750 miles is a long way. Anyway, that's what we're planning on doing next year. We thought it'd be fun to come out and stand by the boat and do this podcast, so that's why we're here. So the top 10 things that I learned from Sam Zell. The first thing I learned was that Sam's family is Polish, and they initially lived in Poland. So then World War II breaks out, and Poland's a bad place to be, especially during World War II, because the German blitzkrieg into Poland. And so his family, his father kind of anticipated that event taking place when he heard about the Nonagression Pact between Russia and Germany. And he saw the writing on the wall, and we're going to talk about that power of prediction in our next podcast when we talk about on intelligence, written by Jeff Hawkins. But his father, saw the writing on the wall when he learned about that non-aggression pact between Russia and Germany, and anticipated that the two were going to squeeze Poland and go for a land grab there. So his father very smartly made the determination that right then and there he was going to try to get the family out of Poland.
Smart.
And so he was able to figure that out. He moved some money to Israel and had some money moved to the United States. And apparently at the time in Poland it was illegal to wire money outside of the country.
Oh,
so
wow.
They figured that out. Also, his mom sewed jewelry into her clothing, so she would have some kind of means for currency exchange.
Smart.
Once they got out of the country. And so getting out was tricky. And I'm just fascinated by this story because so much stress and pain occurred during World War II that Americans can't even imagine. Ukraine right now is going through similar situations. But the stress of having to move your whole family out of the country that you grew up in, your ancestors grew up in, to find safe haven somewhere, I can't even fathom what that's like. But anyway, I think about that a lot and being prepared, because you never know when something like that's going to happen. But they figured a way out. They tried to talk their family into leaving Poland as well, but most of the members of their family did not want to leave. Obviously, I mean, it's a hard transition to make, even in the light of war and invasion. But Sam's core family, his mom and dad, were able to find a way out of Poland. They had to go out through Lithuania. And from Lithuania, they went into Russia and then Japan. And then from Japan, they came to the west coast of America. It took them 21 months to make that trek.
That's incredible.
And the only way they were able to pull that off is they got to Lithuania, and they needed to get a visa before going any further to be able to get out of Japan. And as fate would have it, luck would have it, they ran into a Japanese consul, a Vilnius consul there. His name was Shiun Sugihara, and he went against the Japanese rules at the time and stamped visas for as many people as he could who were fleeing Poland and wanted to get out of Europe vis-a-vis Japan.
Incredible.
And so thousands of Jews escaped Poland because of this guy, Shiun Sugihara, and they're known as the Sugihara survivors.
Wow.
And Sam Zell actually went back to meet him after all this as a young adult, and apparently this man was a member of the samurai family. And apparently samurai have a tradition of helping people, regardless if they're your enemy. If you're in need and you need help, that's in their tradition to help people. And so that was really a key that was imprinted on his family, that that's allowed them to survive. So that, I thought that was just so fascinating. 21 months to get out, get over to the west coast of America. The rest of their family, save for a brother and a sister on his mom's side, perished in the war. So the foresight of his father to get them out, saved that family essentially. So that was really, really fascinating. So he comes to America. His family comes to America. They're on the West Coast. They move to Chicago, and he's born 2 to 4 months later. He's born.
Whoa! So somewhere along the trip.
21 months, yeah. How? I don't know. That's all that stress, but anyway.
Somehow.
How does that happen?
I wouldn't know.
A lot of kissing on that trip, I guess. We digress. Grows up in Chicago, loves Chicago. You like Chicago?
I love
right?
Chicago.
I don't like Chicago at all. Sorry to say. At least the times I've been there. But so he loves Chicago. Loves the city, loves all the stuff that's happening, and I guess he picks up a lot on the wheeling and dealing that's going on the streets there. So number 2, that was kind of the family background, number 1. Number 2, things that kind of made Sam who he is his Jewish upbringing. He went to school in Chicago at a traditional Hebrew school. 2 Jewish principles he shares in the book that help shape who he is. One is Shem Tov. Shem Tov, I don't know the exact pronunciation there, but that is your reputation. And reputation is very important as a business person. You hear Warren Buffett talk about your reputation being the single most important aspect of being a business professional. And so he just kind of reiterates that. You do what you say you're going to do. You're trustworthy. Your handshake is your word kind of thing. I am who I say I am. The other Jewish principle is tzedakah. I hope I'm saying these right.
Mike, help us out.
That means righteousness, kindness, giving to others, and that was a phrase he associated with Shiun Sugihara, helping his family get out of Lithuania and Japan.
Wow.
Just helping your fellow mankind there. So those are two important principles that help shape who he became as a business person. Number 3, in chapter 2 of the book, it's titled Start by Being Audacious. I thought this was a really important chapter to see kind of how he evolved as a business person growing up. And so he's in college, and I guess he's doing well in his grades, but the thing that he gravitates to is doing business deals. And he has a roommate who is aware of his landlord's buying some more rental property. And so Sam gets the idea, hey, let's pitch your landlord on being property managers for that property. Just to see what would happen.
Cool.
Be audacious. Just try it and see what happens. And he didn't have any experience managing properties or anything, but he's like, let's just do that.
So it's about taking the risk and...
Yeah. So he does that, and the property manager says, "Sure, you guys, I'll take a risk on you guys and see how you do." And so one of the first things they did was the furniture in this apartment buildings. It was for students. It was student housing. Apparently the furniture was like for normal adult people, and he realized that the kids would not like it, so they got rid of all of the furniture and they made it like a trendy, young, hip furniture. I don't know what that looks like, but apparently made it more appealing to the students there. It became more popular, and so the landlord did great. And then the landlord bought 2 more properties, and they got deals to manage those properties as well. So all of a sudden, between his junior and senior year, he's got a property management company.
Yeah.
So he's doing well. He also learns the art of the upsell here. He starts selling other things to his fraternity, like something about a snake that they with a hat, and I don't know, some kind of thing that frat boys would want to give their girlfriends when they go out on dates. Just little stuffed animals and stuff.
I can't imagine a girl wanting a snake.
Well, apparently stuffed animal.
Especially like a sorority girl.
I don't know. It was some kind of happy snake. I don't know. But anyway, whatever.
Maybe she does want that.
It was an upsell. He's doing an upsell. That's the point. So then in between his junior and senior year, he works for Helene Curtis, which is a cosmetics company. And he says he didn't, in retrospect, he wasn't working there to make money. He was working there to learn how to get rejected. So
fascinating.
Got a lot of rejection, and he learned how to deal with that rejection. He said that was a very valuable learning experience.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So that was number 3, working, kind of growing up and learning his entrepreneur chops there in college. And so basically when he graduates, he's coming into his own as a businessman. He's figured out how to make money. He's figured out how to get people to give him money, and that's really important.
That's
when you get that feeling, you're like, okay. So then he goes to the University of Michigan Law School, goes up to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and from there he starts buying up entire blocks of properties. Like entire blocks, houses on an entire block. And one of the key aspects there is that the real estate he's buying is co-located. And that's smart, because if you're buying houses all over a city or in remote places, that gets really hard to manage. But if you buy properties on the same block, you got one location to go to. So that was really smart, I thought.
Yeah.
What he figured out there in law school was that he developed an investment thesis, and his thesis was that he's going to go from that point. Once he gets out of law school, he's going to go to less developed areas of the country in college towns and buy college rental properties and scale that way.
Yeah.
So because he had great success there in Ann Arbor, so his next thought was, okay, I'm going to go back to Chicago and find some college areas and start buying investment properties there and kind of do the same thing. So that was really important, that he developed a thesis that he was going to develop in order to scale his income.
Yeah.
So at that point, when he graduated from law school, he's already a millionaire.
Gosh, can you imagine?
He had $250,000 in the bank. He made $150,000 that year, which in those dollars was over $1 million.
Yeah.
Not to mention the real estate that they had acquired. So, it's just kind of amazing to realize that he was really good with money, really good at income, and he figured that out early on. And I can't even get my head around that, because when I think about what I was going through in college, I was just trying to figure out how to survive. Get my brass shine the right way, my shoes shine. I wasn't thinking about making money at all. I had no idea. And same thing when I graduated, I had no idea. But here, so it's just good to see other people and how they think about, in the same situation, how they think about money and finance and stuff. All right, so number 5, he goes back to Chicago, and because his parents wanted him to get a job, he starts looking for a job at various law firms. And
even though he has
even though he's
business.
crushing it in real estate, yeah. So that was also like, trying to keep the family happy while you're being successful in other ways. So there seems to be like a little inflexibility there between him and his parents, or they just didn't have the realization that he could do something on his own.
Yeah.
That I guess that mentality that you need to be working for somebody else to have an income. So he goes and interviews with a bunch of law firms. Nobody will take him because they realize, he's a wheeler dealer. He's just going to come in here and wheel and deal all the time. So he has a lot of trouble with that. But then he gets hired by a law firm who actually want him to wheel and deal. But then he gets in there and does better than all the attorneys who are doing legal stuff, because he gets in and is just doing like wheeling and dealing of real estate, and they kind of get jealous and it doesn't work out. But he meets a mentor and a friend at that time called Jay Pritzker, whose family founded the Hyatt hotel chain. And so that was Jay Pritzker apparently was instrumental in helping him think about bigger real estate deals and doing even bigger things, improving his big think. And so that was another critical turning point in his professional career. Number 6, he mentions a book that I bought, looking to read, Zeckendorf, the autobiography of the man who played a real-life game of Monopoly and won the largest real estate empire in history. So I like that reference. I look forward to reading that. Number 7, it was interesting to hear about his relationship with his partner, Bob Lorry, who he brought into the company that he founded after kind of deciding he wasn't going to do law full-time. He was going to form his own real estate investment company. Bob Lorry did not come on as an equal partner, but he allowed him to build up equity in the company over time, and so eventually they became equal partners. I thought that was interesting. Another interesting thing was how casual the work environment was, and how he espoused a very casual work environment in his company, and how he encouraged authentic self for all of his employees.
That's
a
brilliant.
relaxed environment.
This was like way ahead of its time. Like
because he's like, this is 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
Everybody is very buttoned up tight in corporate America at that time, but he was like, his partner wore a big belt buckle and jeans and stuff, and so, but they were making money, so they didn't care how they dressed. Number 8, some of his comments about being an entrepreneur. He said, business is basically about managing risk and understanding supply and demand fundamentals. If you got a big upside and small downside, do the deal. I mean, that's good to know. Opportunities are very often embedded in the imbalance between supply and demand. It could be rising demand against flat or diminishing supply, or flat demand against shrinking supply. Number 9, he doesn't like business competition. So I thought that was interesting, because in our review of Blue Ocean Strategy,
that's where my head just went.
Same thing. Like it commends businesses to try to do business without as much competition as possible.
Really find that niche market.
He's the exact same way in his thinking. He says, frankly, there's no substitute for limited competition. You can be a genius, but if there's a lot of competition, it won't matter.
Yep.
And then he says also, I jokingly tell people that competition is great for you. Me, I'd rather have a natural monopoly, and if I can get that, I'll take an oligopoly. So love that. Thoughts on, you don't want competition in your business. Number 10, finally, he built equity office into the largest REIT in the country. He spent 10 years acquiring quality office spaces across the country, and he was very proud of what he built. He called it his baby. Took that company public, and so I'm thinking, okay, how does one become a billionaire? Well, it's easy, right? On the face of it, the pattern is easy. You start a company from scratch, and you take it public. You probably become a billionaire. Devil's in the details there, obviously, but that's how you become a billionaire, and that's what he did. And then, if you can manage to sell that company to an even bigger company for even more money, then bonus, right?
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what he did. And enter Blackstone Group. And we learned about Blackstone when we read Schwartzman's book, What It Takes, and we talked about that one in episode 15. And one of the, I thought when I read Schwartzman's book, it was interesting to note the performance of John Gray coming up through that company. And for some reason, John Gray just really fascinated me because he was, really, really young, worked in Schwartzman's company, and I think the quote that came from Schwartzman's when he says that business leaders are not born, they're made. I think he was thinking about how well Gray was doing in his organization. But anyway, turns out John Gray is the one who did the deal for Blackstone to purchase equity office, Sam Zell's equity office, and he's the one who arranged the Godfather deal that made it to where Sam was willing and able, his fiduciary responsibility to his shareholders, willing and able to sell his company to Blackstone, which is an even bigger fish.
Yeah.
Made a ton of money in that exchange as well. So, fascinating life of Sam Zell and his family, and learned a little bit about what it takes to be a billionaire and how to get there. And I really also enjoyed the fact that he explicitly states that you can become extremely wealthy by living by having ethical principles. You don't have to be a criminal or have, walk a gray line in your morals and ethics to become very wealthy.
That's huge.
And it sounds like he has lived his professional life being extremely ethical, being guided by core principles that brought him up through his youth and became extremely successful. And so he's a great role model to study.
Rule number 1, be excellent to each other. Phil and Ted.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching this episode. We'll talk to you next time.